to go and just pay homage to my mom and dad, who had the fortune to be able to purchase here in San Francisco. And they purchased a home right here in on Mine in 1955. And at the time that they purchased their home, it was $13,500. And from my understanding, I think their mortgage was maybe about $75 a month, something like that. And so I just wanted to set the precedent there, just because last week a house across the street, our house is a two bedroom, 1 bathroom, across the street sold for $2 million. Unfortunately, my parents were in one of the predatory lending loans from Wells Fargo, and it was a balloon loan or payment where it just continues to increase yearly. It seemed like it was increasing before that. And unfortunately, my father had passed away, and we were looking at all kinds of ways that we could continue to keep the home. And fortunately, I was able to refinance with my mother to be able to keep the property. And so that, released me from being a first-time homeowner. I wasn't able to go that route. Fortunately, I was able to continue to keep my home, as I couldn't see us without me being able to have that property.
Especially in this community, one of the things that we see most often happen is that grandparents may leave the house to children, but the family doesn't necessarily have the money to be able to pay when the taxes go up. There's a huge sharp increase. And so a lot of folks in this community actually lose their homes because of that. And it's just something that we have to be really thoughtful about in the process.
The land trust model is a way in which to create long-term home ownership and legacy wealth building for those communities of color, and it has a very hyper-localized focus, which I think is really powerful. I think that's really what the value added of the community land trust brings, is that we are talking about not only empowering tenants in the short term to purchase their building, which might be the case with a CDC that goes into a community and works with tenants to purchase their building, but we're talking about the ongoing participation of those residents in the management of their housing and control over their housing. There's also a need, I think, for especially communities of color to have a pathway to home ownership, because home ownership is about building generational wealth, building community wealth, building individual equity, and which is a big part of the American dream, and I think it's a big part of how we operate, in our society. What is the American dream? It's home ownership, right? And so the idea that people who don't have, the means to get to buy into home ownership should be excluded, and they should just be happy with rentals. We feel like that's not enough.
A lot of neighborhoods lack a lot of support around these issues, whether it's this question of generational wealth and maintaining that, whether it's mortgage assistance, whether it's access to affordable housing or the Dahlia. There was someone mentioned how do tenants hear about what's happening in our neighborhood around these services? And there isn't really an organization in this neighborhood that does that. That's actually one of the things that's been identified as a real need, is that we need these investments in local community-based organizations that can enable residents to deal with a lot of these issues related to housing.
What we needed from the city was folks that were willing to take risks and to be creative and to imagine.
We're really targeting people of the lowest area median incomes, and we're trying to create home ownership opportunities for those folks, because we think people who are at 30%, 40% area median income should also have a dream and should also be able to own a home. So, we think it's an exciting model for creating home ownership. And especially for people who really can't afford a down payment, you know, even for a BMR unit. So we're able to provide that sense of being able to build generational wealth and equity in a building in a really great part of the city at the tune of $14,000 a unit, which is probably the cheapest form of homeownership that could possibly exist in San Francisco. So today, we're able to offer those units when they do come up for resale at $14,000.
These people are learning how to own a building in the private ownership. And so it's so complex for me, and it's such a novel idea, and I think it would be great if there's a building in the OMI someplace that tenants would like to buy.